We were told that the world had a rhythm, a predictable heartbeat of boom and bust, growth and recession. But as we stand here in the early months of 2026, that heartbeat has become an arrhythmia. The signs are everywhere, not just on the stock tickers or the evening news, but in the quiet desperation of the grocery aisle and the hushed conversations over dinner tables in Ohio, Florida, and California. We are witnessing the arrival of a ghost we thought was buried in the 1970s, stagflation. But for you, the viewer, this isn't an abstract economic term. It is the weight in your chest when you look at your bank account. It is the affordability crisis that has turned the simple act of existing into a tactical struggle. Today, we aren't going to talk about interest rates or government policy. We are going to look into the mirror. How does a crumbling economy reshape the human soul? What happens to your brain when the future feels like a threat instead of a promise? And in a world where the American dream feels like a cruel myth, how do we find a reason to keep pushing the boulder? To understand what is happening to our society, we must first understand what is happening inside the 3-pound organ between your ears. Your brain is a prediction machine. Its primary job is to ensure that tomorrow looks a lot like today, but with enough resources to survive. When the environment becomes unpredictable, when prices rise faster than wages and job security vanishes, your brain's alarm system, the amygdala, takes the wheel. This triggers what psychologists call the scarcity mindset. Imagine your brain's processing power as a bandwidth. Normally, you use this bandwidth to plan your career, nurture your relationships, and learn new skills. This is your executive function, housed in the prefrontal cortex. But scarcity acts like a parasite. It taxes your bandwidth. When you are worried about the $400 emergency car repair you can't afford, you literally have less IQ available to solve other problems. The tunneling effect. Under the pressure of 2026's stagflation, your brain begins to tunnel. You lose your peripheral vision for life. You can no longer see the long-term benefits of exercise, education, or saving for retirement because the tunnel only shows you the immediate threat, the rent due on the first of the month. This isn't a character flaw. It is a biological survival mechanism. But when an entire nation begins to tunnel simultaneously, we see a rise in impulsivity, a breakdown in social trust, and a collective loss of hope. We are living in a state of chronic cognitive tax, and it is exhausting us. For over a century, the United States was built on a specific psychological contract, the American dream. It was a linear story. Work hard, get an education, buy a home, and the next generation will have it better. But in 2026, the hill has turned to ice. We find ourselves in a Sisyphus trap. In Greek mythology, Sisyphus was the king of Ephyra, punished for his self-aggrandizing craftiness and deceit. His punishment was eternal, to roll a massive boulder up a steep hill, but the gods had rigged the game. Just as he reached the crest, the weight would become too much, and the stone would hurtle back down to the plain below. Does this feel familiar? You work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, you cut back on luxuries, you grind, and yet, at the end of the year, your purchasing power is lower than when you started. The boulder has rolled back down. The danger here is learned helplessness. In psychology, this is a state where an organism, forced to endure painful stimuli it cannot escape, eventually stops trying, even when an escape route becomes available. As the American dream becomes an absurd task, many are falling into the trap of quiet quitting life itself. How do we stop the boulder from crushing us? We look back to the ancient world. The Stoics lived through the collapse of empires, plagues, and famines. They didn't have the American dream, so they built an inner citadel. The core of Stoic philosophy is the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, a slave turned philosopher, taught that our unhappiness stems from confusing what is up to us with what is not. Not up to us is the inflation rate, the layoffs at your company, the price of gas, the political climate. Up to us is our judgments, our intentions, and our reactions. In the 2026 crisis, the Stoic doesn't ignore the stagflation, they simply refuse to give it the power to destroy their peace. They say, I may lose my house, but I will not lose my dignity. I may eat less, but I will not become a person of less value. By shrinking your circle of concern to only what you can actually influence, you reclaim your brain's bandwidth. You stop wasting energy on the mountain and focus entirely on the push. If Stoicism is the shield, Epicureanism is the medicine. Modern culture has taught us that Epicurus was a man of excess. This is a lie. Epicurus lived on bread, water, and a little bit of cheese. His garden was a place of radical simplicity. Epicurus realized that most of our stress comes from vain desires, the need for status, the latest iPhone, or a house that impresses the neighbors. In a time of stagflation, the Epicurean wins by lowering the bar of joy. If you can find genuine, deep happiness in a library book, a walk in the park, or a home-cooked meal with a friend, you become unextortable by the economy. The affordability crisis is a monster that feeds on your desire for more. When you decide that less is actually enough, the monster starves. Albert Camus, in his essay The Myth of Sisyphus, gives us the ultimate key to the 2026 struggle. He tells us that the moment Sisyphus turns back towards the plain to retrieve his rock, he is superior to his fate. He is stronger than his rock. Why? Because he knows the struggle is absurd and he chooses to do it anyway. In a society that measures your worth by your productivity and your net worth, choosing to find meaning in the struggle is an act of rebellion. When you look at the stagflation and say, you can make my life harder, but you cannot make it meaningless, you have won. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, not because he likes the rock, but because he has mastered the hill. We are standing at a crossroads in American history. The old maps are burning. The dream is changing shape. It is a frightening time, yes, but it is also a time of profound psychological opportunity. We are being forced to strip away the illusions. We are being forced to ask, who am I when I don't have more? If you are feeling the weight of the boulder today, take a breath. Recognize the scarcity mindset for what it is, a biological trick. Reclaim your bandwidth. Build your Stoic fortress. Plant your Epicurean garden. The economy may be stagnant, but your soul doesn't have to be. This has been a journey through the mind and the mountain. Thank you for listening to Brinicle Reads. If this story helped you see your boulder differently, consider sharing it with another traveler. Stay grounded, stay resilient, and as always, keep reading between the lines.